Hi, everybody. Good morning. And thank you for joining me today at the exploratory call for my upcoming course, Vessel of Truth, starting October 23, Sunday night. And it's going to be our fourth cohort of Vessel, which I'm still finding it a little hard to believe. I remember the first cohort and putting this together, and so much has changed and evolved since then. And I still get excited and a little nervous every time we start a new cohort because this is a course that is really, for me at least, very alive. It's based on certain principles, it's based on certain premises, but it keeps growing and changing and evolving every year. And I know the flyer, if you're on this call, you probably saw the flyer, got the flyer, or heard about it from someone. It doesn't say too much on the flyer. So a lot of you are probably curious about what is Vessel, what is it all about, what does it give over, what can it help you with? And the flyer not saying too much was actually pretty intentional. There is way too much to really put onto a flyer to really do this course justice. And that's why I offer this call, because I want you to hear it straight from me. I want to be able to interact with you and tell you what you need to hear, what you want to hear. But let me tell you a little bit about how Vessel originally began. One question I get a lot is this therapy? Are you a therapist? No, I'm not. This is not therapy. What is Vessel? Vessel is a compilation of the tools that I wish I had when I first began this journey. Many years ago, well, it wasn't so many years ago, but it feels like it because it's been a lifetime since then. I was going through a really, really hard time for a bunch of different reasons. Some of you know a little bit about my history. I was a cancer patient as a child. And one of the very common things that happen after remission is that cancer survivors often go into a depression, into a mode of anxiety and a little bit of depression. No one prepared me for that. No one warned me about that, but it was something that I struggled with a little bit on and off throughout the years. But that wasn't actually what led me into my journey. When I was dealing, kind of skirting the edges of anxiety and depression post-cancer, I had tried therapy a couple of times, and each time it just wasn't doing it for me. And every time I would meet a new therapist and I would get excited, I would get hopeful, and I would really, really commit. If there's one thing I can tell you about myself is that I'm extremely committed, extremely dedicated. If I say something that I'm going to do something, I always do. I'm the one who doesn't miss an appointment, doesn't miss if I set a goal, I accomplish it. And I was very much coming that way. I was approaching therapy that way. Therapy was a goal, healing was a goal, and I couldn't understand why it wasn't working for me, why I wasn't accomplishing. And every time I dropped out of therapy, which kept happening, I kept feeling like the biggest failure. I kept feeling like there was something wrong with me. Therapy was supposed to make me better, but it wasn't. But therapy is the magic pill, right? So if it wasn't working for me, then it must be that there was something wrong with me. And over the years, I just kept trying to battle this on my own. And I had mild to moderate success, to the point where in the world of psychology, or at least back then, the way to deal with anxiety, how would you say that you're cured from anxiety? Not if you don't have anxiety, but if you don't allow yourself to be limited by the anxiety, which means you can still feel anxious inside of your body, but it's not stopping you from living your life. And I was really at that place. Like if you would have met me, you would have seen this. I mean, you would have seen me happy. You would have seen me powerful. You would have seen me thriving. You would have seen me at my best. You would never have known that me at my best was dealing with crushing self-doubt, intimidation, anxiety, panic attacks. But it didn't matter, right? Because traditional psychotherapy was telling me that this was the goal, right? That you couldn't really make me feel less anxious, but you can help me overcome that anxiety to live my best life. And that's what I was doing for a long time until, like I said, around 10 years ago, was it 10 years ago? I have to actually count. I went into a really, really difficult place where my daughter wasn't accepted into any school. And unfortunately, I know that that's a really, really relatable subject for too many people. where people are struggling to find not only the right fit for their children, but they're not, even when they seem to find the right fit, having a hard time getting into the schools that they would love to get into. And that's a whole other story that is not for this call. But my daughter was rejected from 7 different schools. When she was 3 years old, she was going into nursery. And that year was probably the hardest year of my life. And this is me saying that. This is me who had been through cancer, okay? And I'm telling you that that wasn't the hardest year of my life. When my daughter wasn't accepted into school, that's when I crashed. That's when everything came crashing down. And I kept thinking, what was any of this worth? Why did I do any of this? Why did I mean, I know it sounds terrible to say, but why did I fight so hard to survive cancer if this was going to be the life that I needed to live? It didn't make sense to me. And once again, I reopened therapy. I found a new therapist that I was excited to try. She came very highly recommended. And I really made the commitment to show up for my therapy sessions and do as best as I could. And I got nowhere. And I still feel pain around it. When I revisit that story, when I revisit that memory, there's still something in there for me. Because I remember how sad I was and how desperate I was and how broken I was. And I just wanted to feel alive, and I wanted to feel like my life mattered. I wanted to feel like I mattered. And I really trusted or wanted to trust the therapy process, even though I had been burned before, many, many times before. And I just said, no, I'm going to make it work this time. And I remember sitting across from my doctor, and she says, okay, I think that I've taken you as far as we can go, and I would like to put you on medication. And I remember looking at her and I was like, what? She says, look, I think you need to move outside of your community, right? Because if your daughter's not getting accepted to a school, obviously, like, you need to move out of your community. It was not someone who was religious or even Jewish. She didn't really understand my culture, where I came from, why that wasn't really going to be an option for me. And she says, well, if you're not willing to go out of your community, then the only other option for you is medication. And I remember turning to her and said, but I don't understand. Medication is for someone who has a biological issue, right? A biological imbalance, biochemical imbalance in their mind. I don't think I have that. And she says, yeah, but I don't really have any other way to help you, right? If you're not going to move and find yourself a new community to live in, the only other option I have for you is meds. And I remember feeling shocked. Like, this is what it's come to, that if we don't have the proper tools, the only thing we're going to do is tell a young girl, I was, I think, 24 at the time, that we're just going to put you on meds. And I couldn't sit with that. And again, I do need to make a disclaimer. I am not against psychiatry or Western medicine in any sense at all. I believe that it's done a tremendous amount of good, and we are so privileged to live in a time where these opportunities are very available to us. But I remember thinking to myself in that encounter with that therapist, something is not adding up. You're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. These can't be the only 2 options. There's something that's just not clicking. And of course, I left that therapist's office feeling broken all over again, that again, there must be something wrong with me. But also something really stirred inside of me. And I said, I'm going to figure this out. There's something that's missing. There's a missing link. It can't just be that these are my only 2 options, either move or go on psychiatric meds. There has to be something that I haven't touched on yet. And what led me to that conclusion were more than just this particular episode with this therapist. I'll tell you 2 more. One, a couple of years before that, my husband had gone into a kind of psychosis. It was sudden onset. Nobody understood it. And I took him to different psychiatrists, and each one had a differing opinion about what might be wrong with him. And both of them, I mean, I went to two, yeah. One said bipolar, one said schizophrenia. Those 2 are nothing alike, but each of them wanted to prescribe medications. And I had an inkling that this onset actually was brought on by an emotional wound, by trauma. And I was shocked that I sat in the psychiatrist's office. Each one did a lengthy evaluation, and not a single one asked about trauma. And when I brought it up and I said, hey, I just want to tell you what had been going on in his life right before this happened, none of them wanted to hear it. They said, that's not relevant. because psychiatry treats a chemical imbalance in the brain. And I said, but I don't understand. You're both disagreeing. You're disagreeing on what that imbalance might be. You're very quick to give him medications. And they said, yeah, well, it's not an exact science. It takes a while to figure out. And I said, yeah, but I'm telling you that there's something you're not looking at. And that's his emotional state before this happened. And both of them shut me down. Well, to be fair, these were amazing psychiatrists who were many, many years in the field. And I was, I think, 22 or 21 at the time. And why would they listen to me? Shockingly, I didn't give up. And I did a tremendous amount of research at the time. And I figured it out. And I submitted my findings to both of those psychiatrists. And both of them were a little skeptical. But we followed up for a few years with more and more and more of this research. And today, I can't say everywhere, but I can say somewhere, what I figured out back then ended up becoming a diagnosis in the DSM. Why am I sharing this with you? Because I've seen patterns again and again and again in fields of psychiatry and psychology, which Baruch Hashem, they are changing. They really, really are changing. But I'm talking about from years ago, where everyone became fixated on what they know, and what they don't know became, we don't even talk about it here. And I realized that those pieces that we don't know, those are missing pieces that actually really determine the effectiveness of what can be accomplished in a therapeutic container, whether that therapeutic container is psychiatry or psychology, or you know what, even Western medicine. When I was diagnosed with cancer at 16, my oncologist went and told me, you must have had a very stressful year the year before. And I said, yeah, how did you know? I had gone to like 4 schools in 5 years, and I was badly bullied in a couple of them. And I was just constantly, I just wasn't at my best. And I said, how did you know? And he said, well, the body knows how to fight cancer. Right? You have cancer cells all the time in your body, and your body knows how to purge them. So if the body is not fighting cancer to the point where the cancer escalates, then the body must be under some sort of stress. And it can be either emotional stress, mental stress, or physiological stress. And he set me off on this path already at 16 to say, wow, I want to find out more. And that was my doctor, again, of Western medicine. So I was already fixated on these ideas that there are things we don't know. There are things we don't know, and it doesn't discount what we do know. It doesn't discount Western medicine. It doesn't discount psychology. It doesn't discount psychiatry. It doesn't discount it, but it can only add to it. And years ago, when I was younger, back when all of this was happening, I actually went to school. I went to school to become a forensic psychologist. And I was doing really well in school. But at the same time, I was dealing with anxiety. I was dealing with depression. I was bumping into therapists and psychiatrists who were arguing with me when I said there must be a missing piece. And I was in school noticing that I was doing really, really well on my coursework, but I was still having anxiety and depression. And I was saying, I don't understand. Here I am on the road to becoming a therapist, but the things that I'm still struggling with are still there. So what is missing? What was missing was no one taught me some basics. No one taught me, like, I don't know how to say it, but maybe the manual for being human. In Hebrew, we call it da es atzmacha, get to really know yourself. No one ever asked me about my trauma. No one even said the word trauma. I know that's ironic because today everybody uses the word trauma. Like even little kids are like, I have trauma. It's my first day of school. And I'm just like, please don't say that. Please don't overuse a word that actually has a really, really important meaning, because you're taking the meaning away from it. But today everybody knows the word trauma. 10, 12 years ago, nobody did. It wasn't used, but people didn't ask about that. No one taught me how to breathe. Some of you have already heard me speak or know a little bit about me and know that I am very passionate about breath work, which is the utilization of breath as medicine for trauma release, health, endurance. I mean, Olympic athletes use breath to increase their stamina and endurance. Breath is used, oxygen is used in Europe. And hyperbaric chambers, they're used to treat cancer, because I don't know if you know this, but I love telling this to people. Cancer cells are anaerobic. They thrive without oxygen. If you give cancer cells oxygen, they cannot survive. And they're doing a ton of research on this. And in Europe, they're doing really, really successful treatments where they're exposing people with cancer to very high levels of oxygen in tight rooms. And it's doing amazing work. So breath work is a huge deal. I use breath work for emotional regulation, dealing with anxiety and trauma and nervous system balance. as well as spiritual pursuits. I mean, Kabbalah and mysticism is all full of using breath to accomplish spiritual, to attain spiritual states. Sometimes I lose my words when I'm getting too excited about something I'm sharing. No one taught me about that. But they were very quick to say, maybe take some Prozac or Zoloft. No one taught me how to do something very simple like love myself. And that's really important. I learned that, and I'm still learning that over the years. You can't be a person who hates themselves and then love their life. It doesn't work that way. If you're the kind of person who looks at yourself in the mirror every morning and says, you're disgusting because you're not the size you want to be, or you step on the scale every morning and you say, you're not deserving of having a good day today, or you don't deserve to eat today because we don't like the number on the scale, then all the therapy in the world is not going to get you the life you want, because it doesn't start in the therapy room. It starts on the scale and it starts in front of the mirror. But nobody taught me that. So this course is not therapy. This is a course that is based on the principles of Da es Atzmacha. I used to think I was crazy. I used to wake up in the morning and look at my life and say, I have everything, you know, I really do. Anyone who looks at me would say, wow, she has the perfect life. She's a size 2 and she doesn't even have to try. She has all of these talents and abilities and skills, and she's successful, and she has, I don't know, whatever, I don't know what it is. People see me, right? We don't tend to see ourselves the way other people see us. But I was definitely living the life, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. I would wake up in the morning and cringe and say, I can't believe I have to do this again. I have to do another day like this. I have to feel like this for even a few hours, forget a few more days. And I thought I was crazy. So much so that every time I went to therapy, I thought I became crazier, right? Because it wasn't working for me. What I learned over the years is that I don't think anyone is actually crazy. I think that when you spend enough time with someone and you really, really listen, you realize they make sense. Nobody wants to be crazy. Nobody wants to be cruel. People wake up in the morning and they do the best they can with the resources that they have. But sometimes they act out in crazy ways, not because they really are crazy, but because they're operating at a level or from a system or from a lack of resources that you know nothing about. But if you took the time to get to know them, you would realize that maybe they're not crazy after all, that maybe they make sense. So for years, I thought I was crazy. I didn't understand why I was feeling the way I felt, or I was doing the things that I was doing, until I took the time to really get to know myself, to really get to listen to myself. In the therapy world today, in the new age world, in the spiritual world, you're going to hear a lot about the word presence, learning to be present. And we talk about it with learning to be present with time, right? In the present moment, learning to be present with people. It's a hot word today. Actually, not today. Today, the hot word is resonance, right? Resonance or vibration or frequency. But presence was a hot word 2 years ago. These hot words come in and out. But as much as people talk about presence with another human being, presence with time, what I'm not seeing enough of is people learning to be present with themselves. And that was my journey, learning how to listen, truly, truly listen to what my body was saying, to what my inner voice was saying. And the more I listened, and it was really, really hard at first, the more I started to make sense. The more I understood, oh, this is why I feel the way I feel. And the minute I understood it, that was the minute I was able to start doing something about it. In order to make a lasting change, I mean, you can do what I've always done, and probably you've always done. You can hate yourself into a version that you think you might love. It doesn't work. I've hated myself into an eating disorder. I've hated myself into the gym. I've hated myself into doing 50 push-ups per minute. I've hated myself into being an overachiever. I've hated myself into scoring nothing less than an A. I've hated myself into being a perfect mom. I've hated myself into, I mean, the list goes on, and I'm sure you can add things to the list that I haven't even begun to think of. I've hated myself into so much. And it didn't help, because you know what happens when you hate yourself into being the size 2? You don't start loving yourself a day later. You still hate yourself, because now you're afraid that you're not going to stay a size 2. So you have to keep hating yourself because it's the only thing that got you there. So maybe it's the only thing that's going to keep you there. When you hate yourself into being an overachiever, when you hate yourself into being a perfectionist, when you hate yourself into getting an A on a test or whatever it is that you're doing, that doesn't end when you get that 100 or that A or that job. Because again, you're going to keep living in that fear. You're going to keep living in that place of, what if I lose everything I've built? So I need to keep myself at this vibration of hating myself into this tiny little pigeonhole of what I deem success. And then we wonder why we're all in therapy and why we're all miserable. So this course, well, it's based on 8 modules. It's 8 weeks. And the first module is on self-love. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's only by really, really digging deep, learning to understand where you come from, that you can maybe begin to start loving yourself, accepting yourself, and making those changes that you've been trying to accomplish for years. Now, something I have to tell you about this course, it's not magic. It's really not magic. You see all those books behind me? You know what you're not seeing? The books on this wall and the books on this wall and the books in front of me. This is years and years of research and learning and dedication. There is no magic pill. I wish there were. Actually, I kind of don't wish there were, because once upon a time there was. In the time of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, he had a scroll, and this scroll had on it all of the codes for healing. In that time period, people would wait in line at the palace. Anyone with ailments would wait in line, hoping to get a cure from that scroll. And they would walk away cured in a second. They would meet the king. He would find their ailment on the scroll. He would read out a pasuk or whatever it was written there, and they would walk away cured. But then Chizkiyahu HaMelech at one point decided to hide the scroll. Nobody knows where it is today. Sounds like a shame, right? Why would someone do something like that? You have the keys to well-being in your hands. Because Chizkiyahu realized that they weren't the keys to well-being. Illness, whether it's physical illness, emotional illness, or mental illness, always comes from somewhere. And he realized that there are no shortcuts, and he was giving people shortcuts. He was helping them feel better, but he wasn't helping them do better. And that was the point. In mystical traditions, specifically the traditions where shamanism exists, when someone is not well and they call the shaman, who is the spiritual healer of the tribe, he always asks the patient, the first question he asks is, when was the last time you danced? Such a strange question. But it's not, because the true healers understood that the ailment, by the time it reaches the physical, didn't start in the physical. It's usually something spiritual, energetic, emotional. There's a cause underneath the ailment, and we have to find the cause. And the shaman would ask, when did you stop dancing? And it may have been 6 months ago, it may have been 6 years ago, but usually the answer to that question, when did you stop dancing? That was the key to what needed to be fixed in that person's life. And Chizkiyahu HaMelech understood this thousands of years ago. And that's why he hid this scroll. So I'm going to tell you something. I looked for a magic pill for a long time. It doesn't exist. Vessel is not a magic pill. And what I've learned is that change does not happen overnight. Change on the most basic level takes about a year. It takes about a year. It's a hard thing for me to admit, because when I sell my product, which is a very hard thing for me to do, I wish I could tell you, join my course and everything is going to be better for you. It's not. In fact, it often gets worse before it gets better. I know I shouldn't say this in a public forum, because I think I'm like too honest. I have to say things the way I see them. And I probably shouldn't be that honest when I'm trying to convince you to join my course. But yeah, it usually does get worse before it gets better. And I'll tell you why. Because over the years, we've built up coping mechanisms. We've become really good at succeeding, maybe in an unhealthy way. Like fear is my coping mechanism. I do amazing things out of fear. In fact, I'm probably terrified getting on this call, and look how amazing we're doing, right? So we develop these coping mechanisms that really help us succeed. And then as we learn about where these coping mechanisms originated from, why we built them, and we start undoing them, we get closer and closer to our fear, to our pain. So first healing actually feels a little worse. And people think that, oh no, I must be doing this wrong. And that's why I have to say this. Healing, true healing, takes about a year at least to see the fundamentals, to see the baselines of change. And I know that there are some women already on this call who have done Vessel with me and some other work with me, and they can attest to that, because I get texts all the time saying, oh my gosh, Fally, you were right. It's so crazy. Like, it's probably a year now since I did, a workshop with you or this. And I'm only noticing now how much my life has changed. And I love getting those texts because it took me a long time to really see that in myself. Nothing is overnight. And that's why I also, when you join Vessel, I encourage you and I give you my commitment that anytime I give Vessel in the future, once you're in forever. Why? Because the change is not going to happen overnight. And that's what people find, that they did Vessel last year and they're still growing and they're still changing. And you know what? They're still struggling with certain concepts. Maybe not the same way they were a year ago, but they want to go deeper. And we always go deeper. I change. So the course is going to be a little different every year. I mean, some precepts are the same, but I don't have this all figured out. I started by telling you that the first module is called self-love. I'm not great at self-love. I'm actually fairly terrible at self-love to the point where yesterday, one of my friends texted me totally randomly. We're in the middle of a conversation. She's like, Fally, do you hate yourself? And I had to stop and think about it. And I said, well, no, I don't, but I used to. I don't right now. I used to hate myself in a really, really big way. And I was proud of it. I was proud at how much I hated myself because I thought it was a good thing. It got me really, really, really far. Also, it's kind of cool to hate yourself, right? To hate on yourself. If you ever hear women talk to each other, nobody celebrates themselves. They're all like, ugh, I have to lose 10 pounds, or ugh, I have they're always complaining. You very rarely walk into a group of women saying, I'm really proud of myself. I'm awesome and I want to celebrate myself. It's very, very rare, to the point where if you've heard it, it probably sticks out in your mind. You're probably saying, oh, I've heard it once. Yeah, once. Because most of the time what you hear is people complaining. So I told her, yeah, I used to hate myself. I don't hate myself anymore. But do I love myself? No, not yet. I'm not very good at taking care of myself. I'm not very good at putting myself first. I'm not really good at choosing myself, at saying, hey, this is what I need to do out of love for myself. However, I've reached a point where I respect myself, where I value myself, and that's 10 steps higher than where I was just a couple of years ago. Because when I first started this course, actually it was before I began this course, and I kind of was conceptualizing it. It was in the summer of 2019 in July. And I was so excited because I was brainstorming for days, not because I wanted to put together this course. It just came to me one day like, wait, why doesn't a course like this exist? And I had all of this content that was kind of organizing itself in my brain. And I was writing it down for days. And then I called up my friend and I said, I have this amazing idea and I would love to launch this. And she's an amazing friend, because what she said to me was, that sounds amazing, and I don't think you're ready to run it. And if you did run it, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable joining. And I said, really? How so? And she says, because this whole course is built on self-love and you do not love yourself. And that's why she's my friend. That's why I keep her around, because I keep people around me that keep me honest. And I love that. And she was right. And that's why I didn't launch my course in the summer of 2019. I waited until late 2020 to do, not late, it was during COVID. So it was in April of 2020 to launch it. And I was super honest, and I continue to be super honest. I don't have this all figured out, which is why I don't expect to teach it perfectly. I can only teach you what I know, what I have learned, and what I'm still learning, because we're all on this journey together. So some of you are going to be doing this for the second time, for the third time, and some of you even for the fourth time. And I'm very, very excited about that. And if you're new to this course, you should be excited too, because one of the things that I offer in this course is a WhatsApp group. I know not all of you have WhatsApp, and unfortunately, that's the platform I use right now. Maybe one day we'll branch out and use something a little more accessible to the masses, but there is a WhatsApp chat where everybody who's on Vessel, who would like to be added to that chat, is on. And the discussions that happen there, when people are getting stuck with their heart work or coming across difficulty or questions, they get to put that on the chat, and I'm there, and a couple of mentors are there. And the conversations that end up happening on the chat are so beautiful and so deep and so rich and so supportive. And every cohort is so much luckier than the cohort that came before, because they have the support of last year's cohorts and beyond. So this year we're going to have 4 cohorts on one WhatsApp chat, and I'm very, very excited to see where everyone's at and how the old cohorts are going to be supporting the new ones. And I get to be there too. I get support as well. Even though I teach the course, I grow just as much as you do, if not more. So there are some questions that have come in, and I know some of you on the call have questions too. So please, if I have not answered a question that you have and there's something you'd like to know, please start putting them in the Zoom chat, because I'm going to be looking at that and answering them when I can. But one of the questions that came in was, a couple of you asked how this course compares to my other course, Ignite, which is on intimacy. And a lot of you may have heard me talk about Ignite because you've heard me on some intimacy summits. And I am very passionate about my Ignite course that I give a little later in the year, in the wintertime, sometime after Chanukah. No, I don't have a date set yet, but it usually is sometime after Chanukah. And people want to know how Vessel compares to Ignite. So it doesn't. It's not the same content, right? Ignite is about intimacy and sexuality, and that is a subject that tends to appeal to a lot more people than Vessel, which is about self-work and emotional exploration and psychology and our inner worlds. And yet, even though it's completely not the same thing, and you don't need to do one in order to do the other, and I get that it's not for everyone, not everybody has the means or the time, space, money to do both courses, and I get that, and we all have to make choices. But even though it doesn't really compare because the topics are completely different, Vessel is an amazing precursor for those of you who are thinking to do Ignite. Most people who have done Ignite will tell you that it's worth doing Vessel to prepare you for the way we think and the way we approach the topics in Ignite, which is not to say that you can't do Ignite if you haven't done Vessel. It is just a different experience. And there are many people who have done Ignite who then circle back and end up doing Vessel, because they do very much work hand in hand. Because even though I'm not here to talk about Ignite, I will tell you a little bit about it. When it comes to intimacy and when it comes to relationships, the key factor in having healthy intimacy and having healthy relationships is having a healthy sense of self, a healthy relationship with yourself. In any marriage, in any relationship, there's a she, there's a he, and there's a we, right? And if you're not confident in the me, in who you are, you will never be able to bring that successfully into a we. And that's why Vessel gets given before Ignite. And again, not everybody is going to need it or is going to connect with it or is going to want it, but this is a question that was asked. So let me tell you a little bit about how the course works. Both Vessel and Ignite have the same format, so keep that in mind. The format of what I provide is extremely, extremely full. I'm, like I said, a lot of it, of an overachiever. So I don't really know how to do anything halfway. And I always feel like I need to give everything I know and squeeze it all in. So it's very, very content heavy. Let me tell you what the course looks like. So we meet once a week for Sunday night. We meet for a lecture. So the lecture is going to be on the topic of the week. It tends to be, there are serious parts, there are funny parts, there are anecdotal parts. One thing you need to know about me is what you see is what you get. I count myself very fortunate that I managed to put on eyeliner before I got onto the call today, but probably you'll never see me not in a hoodie. I just believe in being comfortable and happy. So I show up to my classes like this. So my classes also sound a lot like this. You're going to get a lot of content, but the content comes not just from the mind, from the heart, and from my personal life experience. So that's Sunday night. The classes are usually depending on the subject, because some weeks are a little heavier than others. For example, self-love is week 1, but trauma is week 6. So when we hit the week of trauma, we might be, going a little longer. So classes are generally an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And if you can't make it at the time, which I get that, we're all busy and some of you live in different time zones, it's not suitable for everyone. All of the classes are recorded. So there's never a pressure to be there at the live class. You'll always have an opportunity to listen later to the recording. I'm kind of on the fence. I generally offer audio recordings only. There's a part of me, and don't hold me to it, but there's a part of me that is thinking possibly to offer the video recording for only 24 hours. I don't like when these things are offered. I don't like them going out potentially out of context. That's something that tends to happen, and it's not something I'm comfortable with. Sometimes people screenshot or video like a minute of me talking, and then it gets out everywhere. And of course, they end up being controversial because people are only hearing one soundbite of a much larger lecture. So I don't love putting that out there like that. So there's a thought that I may make the video recordings available for 24 hours in case you didn't miss it, in case you didn't make it. But again, like I said, don't hold me to that. But the audio recordings are available for you for 1 year until I give my next cohort. So that's Sunday night. Then you're going to get a workbook that gets emailed to you when you join the course. That workbook is roughly 100 pages that we're going to be working through for the 8 weeks. So you're going to have 8 modules of journaling. I call that heart work. I stole it from one of my teachers. I don't like the word homework because I think we've all had enough of homework, and honestly, home should feel like play and relaxation. So one of my teachers used to call it home play, and I adopted that word for a while, but then another teacher calls it heart work. And I actually love that because it is heart work, and it's a little bit of hard work, but it's heart work. So it's so worth it. And that's what you're going to be getting, 100 pages of that. So it's divided into modules and dates. So you'll be journaling throughout the week. We tend to journal around 3 times during the week, and it's not open journaling. They're guided meditations, guided journaling. And each week you're going to be exploring a little bit of a different modality. Like I mentioned, all of those books behind me and on the sides of me and on the front of me, they've informed so much of my work and so much of the way I approach life and see things. So I've really brought in different aspects, different experiences from many different teachers that I've had over the years. And yes, I do tell you who my teachers are. If it's in the book, I will say that where I took this content from, because Vessel isn't everything. Vessel is a launching pad. I want you to explore Vessel, experience it, and say, hey, this exercise was amazing for me. I want to learn more about this exercise. And I'm going to say, great, she's an amazing teacher, or read her book or do her online course. So for me, Vessel is like kind of like an appetizer platter of everything that, so many things that I've brought together over the years. So expect for it to be that for you too. So that's the heart work. And then I also include meditation. So each week you're going to get an audio meditation to listen to, probably 2 to 3 times a week as well. So you have enough heart work to keep you busy every single day. And some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way. There is no way I can do this every single day. That's fine. Not all of you have to do all of the homework, heart work every single day. The reason I designed the course the way I did was because all of us learn and experience things in different ways. Personally, I'm a visual learner. I would quicker learn from reading a book than listening to a lecture. For some people, they're an audio learner. For some people, they're experiential learners. So my course was really designed to target all different kinds of learners and experiencers. So there's a lecture where you get an audio, right? We listen. There's the meditation, that's a more embodied experience. There's the journaling, which is a more also embodied, but also mind experience. And then we come back every Thursday afternoon for a Q&A. And I know a lot of you are like, Thursday afternoon, I don't know if I can make it. Well, again, all of the classes are recorded, and you will always have the opportunity to listen at a later time. And the way the Q&A works is like this. Throughout the week, there's going to be a lot coming up for you. So if you have questions, I ask you to email them to me so that I can address them all on the call on Thursday. So again, we spend about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. You know, last year it was 1.5 hours, and then somewhere in the middle of the course, there was so much content that I'm happy to go a little longer. And so some of the Q&As ended up being 2 hours. So again, kind of up in the air about how we go about that. It really does depend on the week. So on Thursdays, we go through the Q&As that come in. We talk a little bit more about the lesson. There's always more content that doesn't make it into the lecture. So Thursday, we go a little deeper. And sometimes we do facilitations on Thursdays. Sometimes on Thursdays, I'm going to guide you through a live exercise. So that's always fun. So that's the content that you can expect on a weekly basis. If you're thinking about how many hours, like if you were to apply yourself completely and fully to this course and do it with everything I give you, you could expect to spend about 10 hours a week on this course. And for those of you who are like, oh my gosh, there's no way. Yeah, I know. It's totally fine. I don't either have 10 hours a week to dedicate to something, but I'm telling you that I'm giving you an amount that if you wanted to, you could spend 10 hours a week on it. And if you didn't, if you only spent the bare minimum, which means you just showed up to the lecture, which is an hour and a half, and you did one meditation, which is about 20 minutes, you spent 2 hours a week on this. And that is beautiful. That is beautiful. 2 hours a week on self-growth, on inner work, is roughly like exercising 30 minutes a day for 4 days, which is amazing, right? Because when you start any exercise regimen, they tell you, why don't you go walking for 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week, 3 days a week? So 2 hours a week is amazing if that's all you get to devote to this course. That's pretty much anywhere anyone should be starting with. So don't ever feel like this course is too overwhelming and you can't do everything that I offer. You're not meant to do everything that I offer. You're meant to find what in this course speaks to you and what is right for you. And that may change also over time. Certain modules, you may feel very connected to the journaling. Certain modules, you may feel super connected to the meditation. And the meditations change from week to week, obviously, because they correspond to what we're learning. So some weeks they're just like kind of hypnosis. Some weeks they're breath work. Some week they're a guided facilitation. Every week is its own journey. So, and also, every year that you come back, you're going to be in a different place. So maybe last year, the journaling was really profound for you, and breath work, just, you did not connect to it. It freaked you out. Well, maybe this year something might change. I know that for me, it did. I'm very different than I was last year, and I'm more different than I was 2 years ago. Someone asked how they would know if this course is for them. So they want to know what the key points are that we cover in this course. So I'll go over them super quickly. They actually are listed in very tiny letters on the bottom of the flyer, but I will tell them to you. So week number 1 is self-love. Now, one thing you have to know about me, I don't know how to say this nicely. I'm not a fluffy person. I'm a very focused, serious, driven, and dedicated person. My husband sometimes tells me, he's like, Fally, you're too intense. Like, you have a really intense name out there. And I'm like, what? Really? Because I'm so like shy and sensitive. He's like, no, you're known for your intensity. So when I teach about self-love, keep in mind that I'm the person who does 50 push-ups a minute. Like, I'm super intense. So when I come at this, it's more from a place of the psychological aspects or applications of self-love, the scientific aspect. It's not like, please make sure to wear fluffy slippers and do self-care. Self-love and self-care are not the same thing. And we break that down. Week number 2 is called integrity. That's one of my values, is integrity. Like I already said on this call, I have a hard time and that's one of the reasons I have a hard time talking about my courses and selling my stuff, because I'm almost, I think, a little too honest. I would quicker tell you, no, don't do my course, or don't work with me, because I don't know if it can give you everything you want. I'm not a salesman. I don't try to convince you of anything. In fact, I spent years pushing people to go to other people, not to me. And I would almost feel bad when they started working with me, like, oh no, like, are they sure they want to be working with me? So module 2 is about integrity, about staying true to your core values. What are your core values? How do you find them? What do you mean? And why have you deviated from them over your lifetime? Because we all have. We are not who we were when we were little kids. Just this morning, I don't know why I was deleting 1,000 pictures, well, 8,000 pictures off my phone. And a picture of me as a little girl came up, and there were 2 pictures actually. One was a picture of me on the beach. I was on my knees and I was filling up a bucket of sand. And that look on my face, I must have been about 3 or maybe 4. I was so intense. And I was like, I recognize that look, that is still my look. Super, super, super intense, like filling up this bucket of sand. All of my energy, like, it wasn't just my face was looking at this bucket. My whole body was looking at this bucket. Everything in me was angled towards this bucket. And I was like, well, that's still me. But then the other picture was me hanging from a tree branch. And I was like, my belly button was showing. And I was like, look, Ma, with my little crooked teeth. And I was like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that carefree, like, look, Mom, showing off, take a picture of me with my belly button showing. And I'm totally unself-conscious. And those 2 pictures side by side, juxtaposed, were like, oh, there are parts of you that don't change, There are parts of you that are at your core, that are with you always. And then there are parts of you that you lose. Why did I lose that? So that's week 2, coming back to your core, coming back to your values, figuring out what you lost, when and why, and how to reclaim them. Week number 3 is a little more technical. Week number 3, we talk about your emotions. With all of the books behind me, I will tell you something really interesting. Very few of these books were actually in my life until 2016, August 2016. I know it's shocking. It's very hard to believe. I've always been a big reader, but I never read anything that wasn't a novel. I mean, unless it was, something I needed to study for school, but until August 2016, I only read novels. A, because I have a very rich inner world and fantasy life, but B, because I thought I couldn't learn. I went to years and years of schooling that taught me that I didn't fit the mold of mainstream. And I started believing, I think I always believed that I wasn't a good learner. So I never allowed myself to read books that were academic or psychological or even scientific. And in August of 2016, I found a book. I didn't find a book. I stole a book. I was off my husband's desk. I don't even know why he had it, because to this day, he doesn't even remember buying it. It was on his desk, and it was called The Language of Emotions. I'll never forget. I opened it up to page 117, and I read a chapter on the relationship between anger and forgiveness. And for those of you who are like, how does she remember that it was 117? I do have a photographic memory, which is shocking, because I am the person who was convinced that I'm learning disabled, and I couldn't learn with a memory like mine. But that is what your childhood does to you. That is what trauma does to you. That's what those ingrained belief systems do to you. And once I read that book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the manual for being human. I didn't understand my emotions. I was always overwhelmed by my emotions. I wanted certain emotions to stop. I see lots of people wanting to take medications to get certain emotions to stop, to get them to only feel one thing and not another thing. And when I read that, I was like, this is the manual for being an actual human being. Emotions exist for a reason. And that was my first plunge into, I need to learn more. Honestly, since that book, I stopped reading novels. I read very, very, very few novels, which is not to say I'm not going to indulge every so often, but it led me on this crazy investigative journey, wanting to get my hands and my heart on everything that was going to teach me more about how to live this experience in my body with all of the feelings and all of the things that make me human. So that's week number 3. That's on emotions. Week number 4 is on shadows. Shadows are a fun week for me. It's all of those parts of yourself that you're not willing to see, that you're ashamed of, the parts of you that you're hiding away, the parts that you think you might die if people in the world knew that you had them. The greedy part, the lustful part, the part of you that steals or that lies. You know what? And we tend to think that that's what shadows are. We tend to think that they're super dark, but shadows are also super light. Like, how many of us have put our talents or our skill into the shadow? When I was a child, I used to play music a lot. I spent hours and hours listening to music and playing different instruments. And then something happened, and I spent probably 15 years not going anywhere near music or instruments, to the point where I forgot that that was such a huge part of my life. And I didn't start reclaiming that until about 3 years ago. And now I can't get enough. I have maybe 8 instruments, and I'm exploring 2 more right now. I'm about to start my 9th and 10th. And that sounds awesome, but believe it or not, that was a shadow for me. My musical self, my artistic self was also put into shadow. Why? Why was I ashamed of it? Why was I scared of it? Why did I hide it away? So that's module 4, where we explore those parts of ourselves. Module 5 is our higher self. I don't like to call it our soul, but it's not our soul, but it's the part of ourselves that is conscious, that can separate ourselves from our emotions. It's the I am, before we say I am tired, or I am lonely, or I am sad. It's the I, it's the anochi, it's the me that is beyond, that is above our emotions. It's the me that exists above time, above place. And that's module 5, where we get to that place where we can see our lives from a higher perspective, above our story, not get caught into that. Then comes module 6, which, as I mentioned to you before, is trauma. And yeah, it takes 6 weeks. It takes 6 weeks to get to talk about trauma, which is ironic, because everybody wants to talk about trauma first. The minute someone starts therapy, they're like, let me tell you about my trauma. And I stopped connecting to that. I tell people you're so much more than your trauma. And if you knew who you were and you knew how much you were loved and appreciated and valued, you would introduce yourself so differently. You would see your trauma so differently. One of the ways that I illustrate that is, let's see if I can find it right here. So like I said before, I mentioned that I had been a cancer patient, and I don't really experience trauma from that. I don't really talk about that with pain. I talk about other things with pain, like my daughter not getting accepted to school or failing at therapy. But cancer for me was just a very eye-opening, interesting experience. And to the point where, oh, there's my ring light. How do we do that? I don't know if you can see that. See that? I made a scrapbook. Well, I didn't make it. My mother made it, of my experience with cancer. And it's fun. It's awesome. I'm trying to see my favorite picture in there. Yeah, this is my favorite picture, where I got my bald chemo cut. You know, we saved a little lock of my hair. You can see that at the top over there. Because, and people are always shocked. How does that happen for you? How do you not experience so much trauma? It's such a terrible thing to go through. And it's because I had a completely different story around it. I had a completely different attitude around it. And my goal is that by the time we get to week 6 and we do talk about trauma, you are ready to see it from a whole new perspective, see what you've been through from a whole different perspective, and experience it in a whole new way. And that doesn't negate what people go through. It doesn't negate the difficult experiences and people that you've encountered, but it helps you relate to it in a new way. Module 7 is manifestation, which is one of my favorite modules. Actually, I think every week when I sit down to teach a new module, I say the same thing. Every week I'm like, this is my favorite module, because it really is. I put my heart into everything I do, and they're all my favorites. So week 7 is manifestation, where we've essentially spent 6 weeks becoming a vessel, really going inside and exploring our blockages, what's been sitting inside of us, what's been poisoning us, polluting us. And once we clear that, we become an open channel. And what happens when you're an open channel is brilliant. It's, I mean, without trying to get too, I guess, Beis Yaakov high school teacher on you, it's davening, it's prayer the way it needs to be, where we can pray from an open heart, not a broken heart. You know, we get broken open, but then that openness is that place we want to be davening from. I often think to myself that Hashem is Shefa. He's just all goodness, right? Everything in the world gets nourished. So why not me? And over the years, I've come to realize, well, maybe Hashem is already saying yes, but maybe I'm not open to receiving. Maybe I'm not open to seeing his blessing. And week 7, when we've spent 6 weeks exploring and opening and releasing, that's when we walk into prayer and we experience. It's not a course where I teach Torah, but it is a course where you will learn a lot that will very much align with Torah perspectives and Torah values. And then week 8 brings us into thriving, because when we are looking for healing, when we are looking to do well, we think, okay, once I get out of pain, I'm going to be thriving. Yes, but also thriving doesn't last forever unless you understand how to maintain that. It's kind of like you lost a lot of weight, you became that size 2, but now can you maintain a size 2? And you can't unless you're willing to invest in nutrition, and not just food nutrition, right? But mental nutrition, emotional nutrition, working out, exercising, right? So week 8 is about that. And week 8 essentially brings you right back in to week 1, because when we go to thriving, you learn how important self-love actually is. So Vessel is one of those courses that gets done in a circle, and there's really no starting point or stopping point. I can only give it in a linear fashion because that's how time works. We go from week 1 to week 8, but many people after experiencing week 8 say, wow, I'm ready to re-listen to all of those recordings and start week 1 over again. And, you know, like, let's go, let's all do this. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about some other things that came up. I don't teach Torah. That's important. I am not a Rebbitzin. I am just a very, very normal human being, and I don't pretend to be anything other than I am. I am married to a rabbi, which is nice because sometimes I learn things or I spout things and I just kind of want to know, like, and I'll just go to him and I'll say, is there a source? And he'll be like, let me pull down 6 svarim. And I'm like, great, that's great. thanks, so I do make sure that everything I teach has a Torah source, but you're not going to hear them from me. I don't give you Torah sources in my courses. I keep my course specifically psychology and not Torah, but I can't separate how I feel about Torah. I can't separate how I feel about Hashem and Judaism and religion. It's very important to me. It's a huge value of mine. And it definitely comes across in my courses. But again, I want to repeat again and again, I don't give sources and I don't teach Torah. But I quote Torah. And if it excites you to learn more about Torah, then I'm excited about that for you. One of the reasons that I'm very strong on this is because I really badly wanted to love Torah as a way of life. I mean, I grew up from and I went to Beis Yaakov schools, and I never really had that experience. And I don't want to go into that about why. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have had very similar experiences growing up. And a lot of my adult life has been dedicated to reclaiming the joy of Torah and the internal embodied experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for myself. So even though, so that's one of the reasons that I shy away from it. I want you to have your own journey to Torah. And if my joy of Judaism and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infectious, then that's wonderful. If my joy sparks in you an excitement or curiosity to know more, then mission accomplished. But I'm not here to teach you anything other than the psychology and what worked for me on this journey. So there are people who ask me about haskamos, like, do I have rabbis backing my courses? No. I have rabbis who have offered to back my courses, and I don't accept that. I'm going to be, again, brutally honest, because I don't know how not to be. And yep, it may come back to bite me, but I don't know how not to be honest. And I do feel like I have to say it because it's a question I get a lot. I don't give haskamos for my courses. I have many rabbanim that I work with. In fact, I know that a few of you are on this call because your rabbis have told you to take this course. I have my own guidance that I value and I prioritize. And I have more than one rabbi because the scope of what we cover, every rabbi has their own specialty, and I have different rabbis with different specialties that I call for different reasons and to give me guidance in different areas. But and a few of them have offered to give me haskamas on my courses, and I don't accept it. Why? Two reasons. One, there's a very disturbing trend where people say, I'm just going to trust. If you say that you have a rabbi, I'm just going to trust. And that doesn't work for me. I want you to have a rabbi. I want you to, if you're the kind of person who needs a rabbi's haskama, you don't need my rabbi's haskama. You need your rabbi's validation. You need to go to a rabbi or a mentor that you're close with. You need to discuss this for yourself, because I don't know you and my rabbi doesn't know you. And my rabbi cannot tell you if this course is right for you. My rabbis guide me. And that's one of the reasons that I did not put a haskama on the course, because my rabbis are going to give me a haskama because they're close to me and because they appreciate me, and they will only say nice things about me, right? Because they're my rabbis. I don't want you to rely on my rabbis. I want you to rely on your rabbis. If you're the kind of person that needs a haskama, please go to your rabbi. And if your rabbi doesn't know anything about me, I'm a quick Google search away. There's so many lectures and videos of me and meditations or stuff. And I'm also an email away. Everyone is free to email back and forth. But I'm very uncomfortable with people using that as an excuse. Like, oh, I don't have to do my own research, or I don't have to be close to my own rabbi or my own mentor because I'm just going to rely on who you say your rabbi is. So I'm not going to do that. Another reason I don't give haskamos, and this is the one that may come back to bite me, is when I developed this course, or not when but the years of seeking that brought me to the knowledge that became the foundations for this course, those years were sparked by a deep spiral in which the rabbis couldn't save me. When my daughter was not get accepted, she didn't get accepted to school, I was at a place in my life where I was brutally and honestly considering sending her to public school, because I had lost all faith in the system. I didn't send her to public school because there was something deep inside me that wouldn't allow it. There was something deep inside me that said, your Judaism is so much more important then the hurt that you're encountering, and the hurt that you're encountering cannot be true Judaism. You need to find out what true Judaism is. And that's what sparked my search. I didn't send her to public school. I wanted more. I wanted to give my daughter an experience of really knowing Hashem, but I had to find that for myself. So let me tell you something. I wish that this course existed back then when I was at my deepest depths. This course did not exist. But had this course existed back then with a list of haskamos, I can tell you that I am the kind of person that wouldn't have taken it because I was so burnt out, because haskamos meant nothing to me then. And this course is for everyone, but mostly it's for people that understand this journey, that love Torah, that love Judaism, that want that embodied experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but they know that they need to find it for themselves. So again, I understand that this is not an answer that appeals to the masses. I'm not looking to appeal to the masses. I don't want to be Tony Robbins, I just want to be me. I just want to live my life with joy. And if what I have learned, if the tools that I've built up over the years can help you live your life with joy, then mission accomplished. I don't need anything more or anything less than that. So again, like I said, I don't pretend to be anything other than I am. Someone asked if this course, who is it for? Can it be for a young girl? Let me just check to see that I'm not missing something. So again, this course is for everyone. It's a course made for women from all walks of life. I have women who are therapists. I have women who are mothers, Rebbitzins. I have young women who are just beginning, and I've had teenagers on this course as well. It's for anyone that feels ready to really learn about themselves and who's ready to make that commitment and put in the hard work, because it is hard work, heart work. However, I will say that it's a very open course because I don't filter myself and I don't filter the women on this course. And we do have a WhatsApp group, and I make a commitment to answer any question that comes up, and I don't censor or filter anything. That's something, again, that every person has to ask for themselves. Is this something that I am ready for? So again, topics stay, let's call it clean, but they are intense. We're dealing with trauma. We're dealing with people with very different backgrounds, very different value systems, and very different life experiences. So content-wise, it's definitely appropriate for anyone who's invested and interested in doing this journey. But in terms of what may come up, I can't guarantee that. So that's something that you really need to decide for themselves. What other questions come up? Someone asked, how do you do the meditation on the course? The sample that I listened to was hard to hear because the music was louder than your voice. Yeah, I know that was something. I'm not a perfect person. I'm still figuring this out. I'm super proud of myself because after probably like 15 years of lecturing and maybe 6 years of doing Zoom calls, I got a ring light for the first time in my life. Like, I'm using a ring light. I'm super, super, super excited. Like, I feel so professional that there's a ring light shining in my face. So the quality of the recordings do get better with time. And I know that some of the old recordings, the music was louder than my voice. And they do get changed and updated with time, but they're not perfect. They're not perfect. So, but again, I'm also very, very hands-on. So when someone says, hey, I had an issue with something like that, I'm the first person that says, okay, let me see what I can do for that. Let's see if I can re-record that and make that work for you. I'm always looking, again, that perfectionist in recovering. I don't know if I'm really a recovering perfectionist. I like that perfectionistic side of me too much to really let it go all the way. But yeah, that's outside of me. That's always going to try to up my game. Someone asked if they're going to miss out a lot if they don't have WhatsApp. No, like I said, you're already getting, without the WhatsApp, you're getting 10 hours of content a week. So the WhatsApp is a chat. And what happens is there are, a lot of people on that chat. I don't remember how many at this point, but most people are lurkers. They're just quiet. They're just observing. Some people end up going off the chat because it's too noisy, and some people really thrive on that ability to schmooze and connect and that communal support. So even the WhatsApp chat is not for everything, for everyone. It's just one thing that I offer. So you won't be missing out a lot on the chat. And if there's something very important that gets put on the chat that I feel is relevant for everybody on the course to hear, I usually tell the person, can you please forward that message to my email so that I can make sure that it gets onto the question answer for everybody to hear, because it's too important a conversation to just leave on the WhatsApp chat. That being said, I will say, in terms of the support that I offer on this course, I don't offer any private support. This is not therapy, and I am not a therapist. So I am not here to offer any private support. Also, it's extremely overwhelming. I get thousands of texts a day, and it's just not possible for me to answer them all. So you will find me on the WhatsApp chat. I kind of lurk over there. I don't answer everything that comes up there. I kind of save that for the question answers, but I observe everything that's there. And I have a team of mentors. Some of them are actual therapists that also are monitoring the chat and keeping me in the loop if there's anything I may have missed or need to be addressing. But no, you do not get personal one-on-one support with this course. And that's important to say, because again, like the same way I don't give haskamas because there is no substitute for you having your own rabbi, I don't give personal one-on-one support because there is no substitute to be working with your own coach or therapist or mentor or guide. Somebody else asked, what do I mean by constellations? So I love that because a couple of years ago, when the first flyer went out, people asked, what do you mean by breathwork? And now no one's asking that. No one's asking what I mean by breathwork. So 5 years ago, when I started doing breathwork, nobody in the community knew what breathwork was. And everybody thought it was like some form of yoga. Today, I think people have more of an experience of breathwork. In general, I find that anything that I do, people are like, what is this? Until 10 years later, and all of a sudden it explodes. Like when I first trained, my first training is in hypnotherapy. And in the beginning, when I started doing hypnosis, people were like, that's against halacha. Are you sure that this is okay? And my husband was teaching meditation classes. And when he first started teaching meditation classes, it was 10 people and they would lock the door because they were afraid, because meditation, and today everybody says the word meditation and nobody even doubts that it's okay, but and people are all over doing hypnosis. But in my days, when I first started, again, 2012, 10 years ago ish. People were like, I don't even know if you're kosher, so Baruch Hashem, a lot of these modalities that are like new and weird are starting to filter in, and people are like, oh, that's amazing, it's life-changing. So breathwork is one of those, and constellations is a very broad term. So I don't want to go into it too much, but what I can tell you is, when you think of constellations, what you're usually thinking of is the stars in the sky, right? So the stars in the sky, through thousands of years, if you come out, the Orion constellation always looks the same. The Big Dipper constellation always looks the same. The stars are always going to be in the same pattern, right? Each star is going to be relative to where the other stars are. Your life is also like a constellation. You just don't realize it. And we talk about this a lot more in the course, why we keep manifesting certain situations again and again and again. Like, you've all said this, because I literally have not met anyone who hasn't said this. This always happens to me. Right? That is a constellation. When you can say this always happens to me, right? Or you tend to attract the same kinds of relationships again and again, or the same kinds of friendships, or the same kinds of jobs, or the same kinds of circumstances. And each time you think this is going to be different, but then it's not different, that's a constellation that you don't even realize it. You're stuck in, let's call it the Big Dipper. And there's a whole form of experiences, a whole, again, constellation of experiences and people that are constantly in relationship to you. And this course will, Emir Hashem, help you recognize what those are so that you can break them. Recognize what those are, where they come from. Look at them with a lot of love and humor. And again, like I said, constellations is very, very broad. How did you end up in a constellation? Well, so many different ways. Some of it is your own trauma. Some of it is your own belief systems. Some of it is the family that you were born into, your lineage. And again, a lot of that gets discussed throughout the course. And it's not just gets discussed, you will be experiencing that. One of the things that I struggled with a lot in my learning, and it's what motivates me till today, is I felt that I didn't learn well because I'm an experiential learner. And I didn't want to be lectured at. I didn't want to be taught concepts. I needed to experience it. I am a freak in terms of what I can read and retain in terms of my memory and spit back at you. I understand concepts very, very, very well. But to get it here into my heart, or even lower into my gut, that's not so easy. And it took me years to learn that it's not enough just to have things up here, but you really need to feel them and experience them and embody them. So a lot of my course is designed to get things from your head lower to your heart, to your sensations, to a lived and embodied experience. So I know the word constellations is very vague, but it will make a lot more sense as we explore deeper into this course. Okay, let's talk more. Okay, what other questions came in? Someone says, what I love is you're so perfectly imperfect, super clear, focused, passionate. Of course, she's my cousin. Cousins have to say these things. All right, so someone asks, is this course directed at people who have traumas? Is this course for every growing person, or do I need to have a complicated situation or past? Please don't have a complicated situation or past. I just want you all to be healthy and happy. It's sad for me when people say I have a really complicated situation and past. No, you don't need to have a complicated situation and past. This course is for everyone. Again, if you do have a complicated situation or past, please work with a therapist. Please work with someone who can hold your hand and guide you, because I am not a therapist, and this course is not a substitute for therapy. So this course is for anyone who wants to explore their inner worlds and take this journey of self-growth. You don't have to have trauma to really do well in this course. Just the opposite. If you don't have trauma, you're going to do exceptionally well in this course, because there's nothing blocking you from learning these things. Trauma kind of gets in your way. And if you do have trauma and you are seeing a therapist, this course is amazing for you to be doing in conjunction with therapy. I've had a lot of participants take the heart work to their therapist for their weekly sessions and journal with their therapist and discuss what came up. And it's been beautiful, and they've gotten profound insights. So I love when that happens. A really great question that just came up is, can the course be misinterpreted in any way? My daughter took a different course and totally took it out of context. Yeah, everything can be misinterpreted, right? And that's kind of what I said at the beginning of the call, why I have a lot of hesitancy around some of the recordings getting out, because people do share snippets of what I share and they always get taken out of context. Because again, if you're looking for an excuse in your life, you'll find one. I can't tell you how many people become selfish as a result of taking or doing self-work. I can't tell you how many people leave therapy and they say, I don't have to care about anyone else because myself comes first, because it's all about like, for my self-growth or for my, I'm not even saying it right because it just nauseates me. So I just stay away from that kind of talk. But they abuse the people that they're in relationship with. They neglect Torah. And again, Torah is my highest value, but I'm just watching things happen in the outside world. And this is not a judgment, but I'm watching people neglect what they used to value in favor of the me. Because if that's what you're looking to do, if that's what you're looking for an excuse for, you will always find an excuse for. So I try to be extremely, extremely clear. And that's why there are the Q&As, because I do want to address these kinds of concerns. I can't guarantee what someone is going to do with information if they want to do it. A lot of you are here because you saw my lecture on the Intimacy Summit, and there was a WhatsApp clip going around where someone filmed 1 minute, just 1 minute, it was 58 seconds or something, of me saying a really, really profound point. And the feedback that I got, because what I said in that clip was that love is not an option, that I think it's an absolute must for relationships. And of course, that was one clip out of an hour-long session. And I got flack from like Rabbanim. And I was like, whoa, you didn't, I totally agree with what you're saying. You just didn't hear the 30 seconds that came before this answer and the 3 minutes that came after. And of course, these things do get taken out of context. So I have to be very, very clear. I'm only human and I make mistakes, and I can only give it over with my human imperfections. What ends up, how people take it, I hope they take it well, and I hope they take it with the intentions that I give it. And I try to be as clear as possible. And if there are any questions, I sincerely hope that they bring them. And you know what? I love being challenged. People challenge me all the time. I'm not afraid of challenges, because challenge me. Let me see how well I know my work. I'm not in it to be right. So if someone challenges me and I learn that I made a mistake, I'm the first person to own up to that. So I don't know if this answers your questions perfectly, but I hope it gives you a little bit of an answer. Okay, we have someone from a prior cohort that says you won't regret taking this course, and she was from our first cohort, so this is her 4th time around. So that speaks very loudly. Thank you. Someone asks, may I ask how your course compares to a different course? No, I'm not going to go there. I don't compare, but they are not at all alike. Okay, I think what you're asking about, I know that what you're asking about is an in-person experience, and this is not that. These are structures, these are skills, these are heart works, these are meditations. This is something you're going to come back to again and again. They are, I don't compare my work ever to anyone else's. I think the thief of joy, or how you destroy something special, is by trying to compare it to someone else, or to someone else, or to something else. I will tell you that this is only my growth, my work, my investment, what I've learned. And I don't want to, I really don't want to go in the direction of needing to compare it, or it's not helpful. It's not helpful in any way. Which is not to say that I don't recommend other seminars or courses or teachers. I do. In fact, many times people reach out to me. They'll apply to come on one of my in-person workshops, and I reject more people that I take on, not because I'm trying to be elitist. Anytime that I reject someone, I tell them, this is why what I'm offering is not correct for you. Let me guide you to an experience that would be better. Let me guide you to a mentor, to a facilitator, or to a teacher that would be better. I believe in giving people what they need. And if I don't believe that I am what they need, I am the first person to guide them somewhere else. So no, I don't want to compare, because this is not about a comparison. It's just about, does this work for you? Will this be good for you? And if not, that's great. And I'm happy for people to explore the multitude of options that there are around. The person who asked that particular question, I have a small something in the back of my mind that thinks that that particular thing that you're asking about is not being offered for women anymore. So I don't know if it's something that you're considering taking or have taken, but I don't think that that's actually an option right now for women. All right. You are recommending to use a therapist, but my daughter has tried many therapists and they don't help her. That's why I'm looking for something else. I wouldn't know where to turn. So what I like to say is that while this course is not a substitute for therapy, they are kind of like the aleph base of therapy. You know, a lot of what therapy was offering me wasn't because the therapists weren't good. Like I said, they were great. They were just not giving me missing pieces. For example, and I go back to this again and again, that foundation of self-love. Okay, that was so important. Without self-love, no amount of therapy in the world was going to be effective for me. And once I had these tools, everything else started, let's call it, landing for me. So I can't say that this is an antidote or a replacement. It's not. But for people who, again, have tried many, many, many different things and they felt that this wasn't going to work, that they didn't work, people email me all the time, will your course heal my anxiety? No, no. I mean, maybe, but also no. I don't want you going into this course thinking that this course is going to heal you. This course is going to teach you, okay? Only Hashem is the healer. Ani Hashem rofecha. Only Hashem has the power to turn your life around. But this course is going to teach you the skills that you can then learn to apply on your own to bring you towards a place of connection and healing. This course cannot heal you. This course can only teach you, and what you do with those teachings is going to be on you. But one thing this course can do is empower you. It's going to give you what you need to make real decisions for yourself. So someone else, how much of this course is meditation? Not a ton. You're going to get a meditation each week. That doesn't mean you have to do it, because you also get journaling each week. Some people only do the journaling. Some people only do the meditation. Some people pick and choose. Some people have the time and space to do both. You don't have to do the meditation in order for this course to be effective. Someone asked, why am I against medication to regulate emotions? I don't think you heard me. Go back on the recording. I did not say I'm against medication. I said I'm very privileged to live in a world that has medication. I am just against the way medication is being given without respect for someone's life story, for their history, for trauma. I think medication is being dispensed right now irresponsibly. I don't want to go into, again, the science and the research being done on this, but there is so much research about, let's call it ADHD, right? And I speak as a parent whose children have ADHD, all right? I've done a tremendous amount of research and personal experience on this. The rates of ADHD today are skyrocketing. For every child diagnosed with ADHD 30 years ago, when I was in school, today 100 children are being diagnosed with ADHD. And
when they give you medication for ADHD, they tell you that they're treating a chemical imbalance in the brain. Really? How is it possible that 100% more kids have chemical imbalances in their brains today than did 30 years ago? There were always those kids who couldn't learn. There were always those kids that struggled, but they weren't that many of them. But you know what did change in 30 years? Our entire environment. We are breathing in more chemicals. We are addicted to screens that weren't around 30 years ago. We live in pollution, not just noise, not just physical pollution like air pollution, noise pollution. Noise pollution. You can't go out in the street without hearing someone's air conditioner or car. I mean, I live in the city. There is so much mental pollution. Multitasking became something that we're proud of. It's not healthy to multitask. Presence, focus. Why are we so proud about dividing our focus in a million different places? We honor multitasking. And then we wonder why our kids can't focus, because we tell them that focus is not relevant. You need to be able to do 100 things at once. So no, I am not against medication. I've seen medication save lives. In fact, like I said, I believe in Western medicine. I wouldn't be alive. Something I've said on prior cohorts, so some of you have heard me say this, is I've had cancer. And in the years since, I've had tumors twice, 2 more times, that I've eradicated naturally with natural foods, herbs, supplements, and breath work. But you know something else? This summer, I had surgery. I had to have surgery. Some of you can see that it's a little uncomfortable. I'm trying to cover up my scar, but I had to have my thyroid removed. And there's a part of me that thinks, oh my God, did I fail? Here I am. I preach natural. Yeah, but I also preach that Western medicine exists for a reason. And sometimes that's what you need. That's what you need, but you need both. You need both. So I'm not against medication. Like I said, it saves lives. And we are so lucky and so privileged to live in a world where these things exist. But if you're relying on medication and you think it's a magic pill, it's not. If you're not looking inside and wondering, what happened to me? Why am I like this? Why is my brain acting out in this way? Why are my emotions acting out in this way? Then you know what's going to keep happening? Your medication dose is going to keep rising. I know, because I've seen it, because I've lived it. And that's something that I don't want for anyone. I want all of you to feel I am the master of my life. I am in control. I love my life. And even if I need medication, guess what? The irony is I'm going to be on medication the rest of my life, which is ridiculous because I have spent years getting off any sort of chemicals. And right now I take a chemical every single day, and I will take a chemical every single day. Why? Because I don't have a thyroid. So I know what it means to have a chemical imbalance. I know what it means to be reliant on an outside source for something that you wish your body could have given you. But don't let it be everything. Okay. I know that if I wanted to, I can gain weight or lose weight very, very easily, depending on, just adjusting a little bit of the synthetic hormone that I take every single day. If I go up with my dose, I'm going to lose weight a little faster. If I go lower with my dose, I'm going to gain weight and keep it on a little longer. And it's very tempting, but nothing replaces going to the gym. Nothing replaces eating healthy, right? So even if we are using Western medicine, even if we are using medication to regulate emotions, nothing replaces doing the work and really getting to know yourself, learning the skills that you need to navigate life. Medication is not a skill. Medication is a pill. And again, like I said, it saves lives, but nothing replaces doing the work and learning the skills that you need in order to navigate. What other questions are coming in? How do you guide people to more personal help if I don't see people one-on-one? I guide them to people who will see them one-on-one. So I'm not sure what the question is. People ask me questions all the time. I ask them a little bit about what they're struggling with. And if I have a resource for them, I'm happy to guide them. Someone says, someone says, you mentioned you like when people challenge you. In what context is that done? On WhatsApp while taking the course? No, generally not, because I don't promise to be active on the WhatsApp chat all the time. Like I said, I monitor the WhatsApp chat, but there's no possible way for me to answer everything that comes out on the WhatsApp chat. But when people send in a question through email, and I always address those on the question answer on Thursday. I don't respond to my emails. They're usually, I just gather the questions and I bring them onto the live call on Thursday where I answer the question. So if someone wants to challenge me, by all means, please shoot me an email. Okay, let's see. We have another question coming in. Okay, someone says, can I download your lessons? Yes, you can. When you have access to the course, what you get each week at the end of the lessons probably about a half hour to an hour later, I send out an email with all of the links that you need for that course. So you're going to get a link to the recording of the lesson. You're going to get a link to the meditation. You're going to get a link to the PDF of that week's section in the workbook, although most of you will have printed out your workbook in advance, because I do send it to you a week in advance. You'll get whatever links, and then at the end of the week, you'll get a link to the Q&A. And when you go to that link, it's a Google Drive link. On the upper right-hand corner, you have an option to download. So if you download, good for you, because then you have access to it forever. Someone says, I'm more of a selfish, self-care, comfortable kind of person. Anything that comes up, my thought is always, what's in it for me? What can I gain? I do too much self-care, and I don't like that part of me. I did this particular seminar. I did this, I did that. What's your approach in situation? I'm not sure your question got cut off. So I don't know what the end of your question is. My approach is, it takes time to find the right fit. And I don't think that the things that you've done in the past haven't worked. I think that the way I like to visualize it is you've put in the effort, and everything you've built kind of like sits in a cloud on top of your head, maybe in a funnel. And you know how a funnel comes down through a very, very narrow opening? And sometimes there's something very tiny stuck in that narrow opening. And you have so much in that funnel that's waiting to come down, and it's just not coming down because there's something super tiny. And sometimes you've done so much and you're like, oh, when is it gonna, sit with me? And I don't know. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting that one tiny piece out of the way, and then all of a sudden, everything you've done all of those years till now is going to download. So I can't tell you. I don't think that the things that you've done in the past are not effective. I think that they are effective. Maybe they haven't quite landed for you yet. And that's why I love the way I designed my course. That's me patting myself on the back. I love what my course has to offer, because I think it helps you explore many different parts of yourselves. Like, again, those shadows. Maybe there's a part of you that doesn't want that to land. Maybe there's a part of you that loves being selfish, that needs to be selfish. Maybe we're going to find out what that is and why it's there, and maybe we can work through it. I can't promise that. Again, I can only tell you what I can give. I can't promise you what it's going to give to you. Someone asked, you cover all the aspects of healing that you just mentioned. Can the course teach to heal Crohn's disease? I wish, I hope. But again, I'm talking to you with a lot of humility. I got rid of tumors twice, and the third time I couldn't. So, I don't know the reasons why we get sick and what Hashem has in plan. And I remember the first 2 times I healed breast lumps, I felt like $1 million. I felt like, wow, I have this cancer thing figured out, and then I didn't, right? But at least I knew enough to know where my limitations were to say, and now is when I need to actually do the surgery, do the hard thing, and go on medication the rest of my life. So I will tell you this, people have given me regards that the course has helped them alleviate many, many different things in their life, from emotional stresses, mental stresses, to physical stresses. Yes, some people even with IBS or Crohn's disease or colitis. That's not me giving you a promise, okay? I can't. I wish I could. I can't. I am by far not a perfect person. I also have things that I struggle with in my life. I wish I could be that person that gives you that promise. I can't. But what I can tell you is that what you will learn, even if it won't necessarily cure your Crohn's disease, it will do other amazing things in your life. That much I do know. I know that whatever you're going to learn is going to have an effect on you. Where that effect is going to be, I can't promise you. I'm going to answer one more question because I'm already keeping you over time. Someone says, you seem to be superhuman to me. Is this the way a person is supposed to be? I'm not sure what makes people think that I'm superhuman. I yell at my kids. They can tell you. I get cranky. I do. I yell at my kids. And I get cranky, and I need a lot of space. And yeah, I do. I get cranky. And right now I appreciate being on this call because I'm actually hiding from my kids in my office where they can't come and find me. But that's what makes me a superhuman. I'm very, very human, and I'm super at being human. I think that's the key, right? I think that's the key. It's not about being perfect. I'm not. In fact, I used to dress up for these calls, and I decided I'm not going to. I just show up as I am because I want people to see that this is what it means to be human, right? It's the embracing of all. And that's something that we talk about in the course. Healing is the art of becoming a whole, of embracing all of you. And that is the bottom line of this course. How do you embrace all parts of you without negating any of you? So The more I teach this, the more I do this, the more human I am. So last question. It's a question that I don't know why I felt like I got so many emails asking me this question. I don't know why it's on top of everyone's mind. Everybody wants to know what the name Fally is and what it's a nickname for. It's not a nickname. It's my real name. It's my name is actually Fella. And then those of you who are like, what is that name? What is Fella? It is the letter Aleph spelled backwards. And that is as far as I can go with that. And then you're like, why did her parents name her Aleph? Because I'm the oldest, obviously. My next sister's name is Bays. No, I'm lying. Yeah, it's an old family name, and I love it. Someone once asked me, do you like your name? I'm like, I love my name. And they were like, good, because it's really weird. I'm like, so am I. I got this. Thank you, everybody. I know some of you have people who would have liked to join the course, the class. The call today. Something you'll know, if I go over time, I start like stammering on my words, and it's 12:31 on my end. We're like a minute over time, so that's what tends to happen. It's how my body lets me know I'm out of my range. Don't worry, this lecture will be recorded, and I will send out an email with a link to the recording for any of your friends or family who couldn't make it and who you think could benefit. So thank you all for spending your Sunday morning with me. I really appreciate you, and I hope to see you on Vessel really soon. Have a great day, and we will meet again.